Ever since Disney Animation started making feature films, they've often had villains in their movies, with many of them becoming among the most remembered aspects, with their evil plans to rule the kingdom or destroy the hero, and sometimes accompanied by a fun song. They had an over-the-top quality about them that was appealing to viewers of all ages. I've even done a countdown of my favorite Disney Animation villains. However, at a certain point, the studio started to move away from the traditional villain, going for a different approach than what we often associate with the baddies in Disney movies. I personally have found this choice to be an interesting one, and I actually have not minded it. Sometimes a story calls for the cackling villain with elaborate plans, and sometimes it doesn't. It's also good seeing Disney Animation provide some variety in their antagonists, although there are those who disagree and mostly just want to see the usual Disney villain. The 2010s did begin with a classic sort of villain with Mother Gothel in Tangled. She's a witch who keeps Rapunzel locked up in a tower just to use her magical hair to stay young, and is often emotionally manipulative towards her. She shows no remorse for her actions and does not actually care about Rapunzel despite giving off that appearance. She even gets a big musical number, which then comes back in a much harsher reprise. When people think of Disney villains, ones like Gothel are what usually come to mind, and she is a great villain and a worthy obstacle for our protagonist. She literally kidnapped a child for her own gain and then later stabbed her boyfriend. She's pretty evil while also being highly entertaining. After Gothel is when you start to see a shift in how the villains are presented narratively, but that's certainly not a bad thing. Winnie the Pooh did not have a villain, but that's par for the course for the series, as the obstacles come mainly from the character's concerns and worries and the occasional honeybee that goes after Pooh. Wreck-It Ralph is what sort of marks the start of the different kind of Disney villain. Oh, King Candy is absolutely up to no good and frequently seeks to stop Ralph and Vanellope from accomplishing their goals, specifically not wanting her to race. He's also turned Sugar Rush into this authoritarian kingdom where only he decides the rules and makes everyone except Vanellope race on his command. What makes him slightly different is what's eventually revealed about him, as we find out he's actually Turbo, a character from a different racing game. People seem to classify King Candy / Turbo as a twist villain, but I don't think he counts. A twist villain is when a character who is thought to be good turns out to be bad and has been plotting evil things the entire time. The twist with King Candy was not that he was a villain, as this is told to us very soon after he's introduced. The twist was that he was really someone else. I love how they implement this twist too, by establishing Turbo as a cautionary tale for the arcade characters and the possible consequences of Ralph jumping to a different game. That appears to be the purpose of Turbo in the story, and then during the climax the big reveal is made, and quite brilliantly. When you rewatch the movie, you do notice the little hints they drop. It only makes the actions of King Candy / Turbo that much more diabolical. For me, the real first twist villain of this era is Prince Hans in Frozen. It initially seems like he's trying to help the situation in Arendelle until his actual plan is revealed in the third act. Some people have said this twist comes out of nowhere, but there are quite a few hints throughout the film that suggest something is up with him. Watch the Love is an Open Door scene again, and it becomes clear that Hans is just telling Anna what she wants to hear. Consider that the film also subverts the love at first sight plot device in several scenes, and Hans hiding his true intentions to manipulate Anna falls into this aspect of the story. The reveal of his intentions and him being so sure of himself as he tells Anna his plan further highlights just how diabolical he is. Also, think about how many people present themselves as charming and good only for their shadier side to eventually come out, so I don't think this twist is that crazy. I also still remember the gasp from the audience when I saw Frozen in the theater. So while we don't see the full evil of this character until the end of the movie, I nonetheless think he's an effective and hateable villain. Although one odd phenomenon that has arisen since the movie's release are people who ship Elsa and Hans and want to see him redeemed in a sequel. He literally tries to kill Anna and Elsa. Why do people want them to start dating? I don't get it. The folks at Disney do seem aware of this shipping though, as whenever Hans is referenced in things like Frozen 2 and Once Upon a Studio, they make it a point to have him be the butt of the joke, with Elsa often delivering the blow, which I think is hilarious. The twist villain will continue in Big Hero 6, and this is one I don't think is particularly effective. Throughout the film, the heroes face off against the masked villain Yokai. His actual identity is kept a secret through a good chunk of the plot, until the reveal that he's actually Callahan, the beloved head of a robotics program. I remember when I saw the movie for the first time, and when it's revealed who was behind the mask, I did not have much of a reaction. We barely got to know Callahan before he's presumed dead, so I did not feel much of anything upon this revelation. They do attempt to give him a tragic backstory, but for me he just became your standard superhero movie villain and did not leave much of an impression. Zootopia would also have a twist villain, and this is when people start to complain about Disney doing too many of them. However, since the story is meant to be a mystery about who is causing the animals to go feral, it's justified in this case. We're supposed to be guessing alongside Judy and Nick who might be responsible. The reveal that someone trying to create fear and heighten prejudice in Zootopia in order to gain power also fits with the overall theme of the movie and not too far removed from reality. Following this, we start to see another shift, gone with the twist villains, and instead the films decide to have the main antagonistic force not be a specific character, but rather something more naturalistic or metaphorical. In Moana, the island is being harmed by nature itself, and the decisions made by the demigod Maui that cause this. The film does end with Moana confronting a volcano monster, but it's not a villain. They're just a demigod who had their heart stolen by Maui, and as a result turned into something else, resulting in a curse spreading over Polynesia. The cause for the problems in the movie is Maui's hubris and trying to attain more adoration from humankind, and the consequences of his actions. With that said, there's a classic-style Disney villain with Tamatoa the giant crab. He even gets a big song number about how much he loves shiny things. However, he's only a minor character and a single obstacle for the heroes instead of being a constant threat throughout the film. His role in the story is akin to someone like Madame Mim from The Sword and the Stone or Kaa from The Jungle Book. Ralph Breaks the Internet would avoid having a villain altogether, instead having the main obstacle be Ralph's anxiety about being alone again. Some people were annoyed by Ralph's behavior in the movie and felt he was being too clingy, but this is someone who for the longest time was treated poorly and then finally got a best friend after all these years. He was not someone accustomed to social interaction, and with Vanellope showing interest in moving to the internet, that fear manifested in insecurities that almost destroyed the World Wide Web. I actually really liked this and thought it was a creative way of exploring Ralph's arc. Frozen 2 would also avoid having a central villain, with magic and nature being the main things that the characters have to overcome. The closest thing to a villainous character is Anna and Elsa's ancestor, who is long past, with them having to repair the damage caused by his actions towards the Sami tribe and create a peace between them and Arendelle. This was an interesting theme to explore in the sequel, and again a story that did not need a villain for the heroes to defeat. Raya and the Last Dragon would explore a similar message and also take a metaphorical approach. There are these spirits that turn everyone into stone, along with some antagonists chasing after Sisu and Raya. But the main conflict is this continuing war between the countries that form this fictional continent inspired by Southeast Asia. That fits into the theme of the movie, which I've always interpreted as being about the stupidity of neighboring countries fighting each other, whether born out of ego, control, or prejudice, and the negative effect these sorts of conflicts have on their populations. Encanto would have the lead protagonist Mirabel deal with the pressures of being the only member of her family without a magical gift and the mental effect this has on her. I've seen people call Abuela a villain, but she's really not. She's just a stern grandmother who seems to give Mirabel a hard time for something that was beyond her control, and part of Abuela's arc is realizing the hurt she's caused by doing this. So this was another Disney animated film without a villain, with the problems like the house cracking apart coming from generational trauma. Strange World would continue that theme with its generations of explorers. Again, no villain here. Instead, it's mostly the divide between this grandfather, his son, and his grandson that needs to be mended on top of the environmental issue that Elsa are trying to resolve. Funnily enough, there's a scene in this movie that pokes some light fun at the viewers' disappointed lack of villains in recent Disney animated movies, when two characters playing a board game complain that there's no villain, and that's just poor storytelling. I see what you did there, Strange World. Although I don't know why people give Disney so much flack for making animated films without villains. Studio Ghibli has produced multiple movies without a villain, and they're often praised for going that route in their stories. Suddenly there was this desire for Disney to bring back the traditional villain they are known for. They would do that with Wish, but the response was an unusual one, as a lot of folks felt King Magnifico was in the right and had a point about deciding which wishes to grant. This kind of ignores that the character is depicted as a paranoid dictator who thinks everyone should happily grovel at his feet and opposes any questioning of his decision-making. These viewers' reasoning was that people were living happily in the kingdom, so what's the problem? But that's kind of proving the movie's point. Viewers were charmed by him and seemed okay with him having a say in people's desires, with even Asha falling into this at the beginning of the story. It's only after meeting him face to face and seeing that he decides whose wishes to grant based on his own paranoia with no say from anyone else that you realize how one-sided this system is. He created this false hope among the citizens and exhibited a system of control where he holds power over their desires, and that's not a good thing. Moana 2 would also have a traditional Disney villain, but he mostly appeared in the form of a storm cloud. He will likely have an even bigger role in Moana 3. Overall, I've liked that Disney has tried to spice things up with their antagonists. The over-the-top evil villain constantly plotting and up to no good can certainly be a lot of fun, but I also like the more metaphorical obstacle that we've seen from Disney in recent years. It allows for some variety, although yes, the risk of a pattern can set in, like the twist villain. I know others have been bothered by this, and always desire the cackling baddie trying to destroy the heroes, occasionally with a musical number. But it's good to have an animation studio and that filmmakers always trying different approaches to their storytelling and characters. See you next time.